Hello makers, and welcome to Share Stitchery. I'm Catherine Harris, and if you're new here, I do sewing and DIY tutorials each week, so smash that subscribe button so you can see more. This week, I wanted to share with you how to make your very own crossbody purse. The pattern I decided to use was the Sunshine bag from BagStock Patterns. And it is a pretty intuitive pattern to put together. You have a couple of different options. One, you can do it in a two-toned color, or like what I chose to do, a monotone all blue color. It has a top zip, so you don't lose anything in your purse. It has a front zippered pocket for storing things like change or maybe that loonie so that you can get your cart to the grocery store. And an internal zippered pocket so you don't lose things like your keys and your wallet in the large body of the purse. So, let's get to that tutorial.
Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum.
So to start, we're going to do the front pocket. And we're going to get out our pattern pieces, and then we're going to stitch them together. So you're just going to make a little sandwich there, and there they are stitched together. Next, you're going to press them so that the seams point towards the outside of the fabric. This is a faux leather, and I am able to press it with a low heat. That being said, there are certain fabrics that you don't want to press, and maybe just finger press those ones. Next, we're going to top stitch along those edges there, and I use a longer stitch length, about 3.5 for my top stitching on the bag, just because I think it looks a little nicer. And next we are going to start with the front pocket. So you're going to grab your zipper and the front pocket pouch. I'm just unzipping my zipper here. I'm going to place my zipper right sides together with this front pocket pouch, and I'm just going to clip those pieces in place right there. Then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and stitch close to the edge. And once that is done, it'll look like this. Now we're going to create a little sandwich using our lining piece here. And we're just going to flip that down. And I'm undoing the zipper again. That way I don't have to move the zipper halfway through. If you've got a smaller zipper, you'll have to move the zipper halfway through so you don't get that bump when you go near the zipper teeth at the head of the zipper. And then you're just going to follow that same stitching line, and you're going to stitch all the way across on it. I am using clips again. If you have a fabric that is okay to pierce, you can use pins, but with the faux leather, I need to use some clips. So now we have a little sandwich here, and what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch that in place so that it looks nice, and I'm going to give it a little press again with that low heat and some steam so that it's nice and crisp, and we're going to adjust that stitch length to 3.5 centimeters as well. This is what the top stitching looks like, and don't worry about the top of your pocket being larger than the top of, or the lining piece being larger than the pocket. We will fix that later. Now we're going to create another sandwich. So with the right sides of your lining to the wrong side of your zipper top, we are going to stitch that in place using a zipper foot. Once again, I'm using clips, though with this lining fabric, I could have used pins. And I'm just going to take that to the machine and get it stitched in place. And now we are going to have our zipper in place here. We got to finish the sandwich here. So we're going to grab the top piece of the pocket, and we're going to place that right sides together on top of our zipper and clip that in place. And take it again to the sewing machine and get that stitched so it is finished just as we did on the bottom one. And now that we have that done, I am going to fold it out just as we did before, give it a nice quick press, and that steam really gets into the fibers, and I find that that's what makes it really work as opposed to the heat on this. And then I'm going to top stitch that just like we did before. And this is what the zipper pocket looks like once it's all done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch along the side, staying within our seam allowance. And what this does is it actually closes up the pocket because the exterior lining of the fabric gets sewn in there. And so I'm just going to trim off the excess. Make sure you're using non-fabric scissors when you're trimming those. These green scissors are the ones that I use when I'm trimming off zippers or anything that's a little bit hard. You can see the stay stitching is at the very bottom here, so it encloses our pocket. Now for the main purse. So we're going to put the sides together. So we're just going to sandwich those in, and then we're going to stitch down, and we want to make sure that that stitching is outside of the stay stitching that we had done that was in the seam allowance, because we don't want that stitching to show on the outside. So we're just going to stitch this down and just tack it in place in a couple areas. And then once that is done, we're going to fold that out. So similar to the other side there. And the zipper fits nicely. And then we're going to press that. Also, we're going to press the seams towards the outside, just as we did on the back of the purse. We'll do that the same on the front. And then, just as you predicted, we are going to top stitch that, just like we did on the back. And we're going to top stitch all along here. And I'm using a longer stitch length, 3.5. Now I'm adding my fusible fleece. And I'm just ironing that in place. This gives it a nice little loft to it, especially when you go to put the bag fabric in. And just a little caveat here, I do have some instructions on what would be better than placing it on now. So please watch the entire video before you start doing the tutorial, because I have some tips that will work a little bit better than what I did here when I followed the instructions. So once you've got that fused onto your pieces, and I've just got a couple little crinkles here, which I'm just sorting out with some heat. I am putting on my bag stabilizer, which happens to be craft foam. This is the first time I've ever used craft foam when making a purse. Usually I'll use bag stiffener, but this seemed to work out quite well, and it gives a nice structure and is much more cost effective. So now I'm just making a little zipper tab. Oh, did you hear my dog there? So we're just doing a quick little zipper tab. And you're just stitching that in place after you fold both sides in. And we've got 2 of those. And these tabs are going to hold our straps onto our purse. And you're just going to stitch close to the D-ring there. Now you can attach them along the sides or along the top, depending on how you want your purse to lay. So I am putting them about 1 inch from the top along the sides, because I like the way that my purse lies when it's held on either side. But you can also put them on the top if you prefer that look as well. And so once you've got them there, just pin them in place, and then you're going to stay stitch them within that seam allowance from where we had stay stitched the foam onto ours. Next is the lining of the bag. So on this, we've got that stitched in. We're going to add our lining pieces. So first we're going to start with our pocket, because we have a nice internal pocket on there. And then we are going to, and right here, I am actually drawing it on the main piece. You don't need to do that. I'm just doing that so that I can line my pocket pieces up nicely, but you don't actually have to draw it on. You just need to measure down from there. I'm just doing that for the tutorial so you can see where that pocket is going to lie. And you'll also notice that I'm actually drawing this on the bottom, not the top. Make sure it's the top, because I had my pocket going on the bottom. I had to close that up and I had to redo it. So you'll see in another slide here shortly that I do have it at the top. So just make sure you've got it in the right spot. And we're basically doing a welt zipper pocket. So you're going to draw a rectangle onto your pocket square, a couple inches down from the top, and make sure that your rectangle is even. I love using an OmniGrid quilt ruler. And then I'm just drawing my little triangles, which are my little tucks that are going to go down, and the line that I'm going to be cutting. So next you're going to pin that in place. Once again, making sure it's at the top, not the bottom. And then we're going to go lower your stitch length to about 2.5. And so here I've still got it on the bottom. Didn't realize until I turned it all the way out. But don't make the same mistake. I was still able to salvage it though, hurrah. And you're just going to place it through along the sides. And sorry, this is off camera just slightly. I didn't realize that I was a little low. And we're going to press this right side out. One little tip when you're doing a welt zipper pocket is you don't actually need to backstitch. So first things, do not start in any of the corners. You want to start in the middle and drop your stitch length down to about 1.5 and then stitch all the way around. And then when you're doing the sides, actually count your stitches so that it is perfectly square. So when you line it up on the zipper, it looks absolutely stunning. And I'm just lining it up on my zipper here, just getting that nice end centered. And then I'm going to stitch all the way around close to the edge. So that's what that looks like. And we've got a nice little zippered opening. So now we are going to flip it over and then we are going to create that pocket. And you'll notice I've got it back along the top. Yay! And you can see my mistake along the bottom, but because I've got a nice flowery print, you can't really tell on the inside of the bag. And I wasn't going to recut it out and waste that fabric. I'd rather use as much of the fabric as I can in multiple different ways. So after stitching along the edges here, we've got our fully functioning pocket. I'm just going to press this in place here. And one thing, the pattern piece is in two pieces. I was just cutting it out in one long piece as opposed to two and then stitching it together. Now for the main zipper. So I am just marking here how far I want my zipper to go on the edge, and I'm cutting that again with my green zipper scissors. And once I've got that cut, I'm going to create a tab for the end, and I'm just folding both sides in and then folding it over, and then I'm going to place that over the end of my zipper tape to create that zipper stop. And I'm going to place a clip here, and then I'm going to stitch along the far edge on there. Now I'm going to place my zipper down, and then I'm going to use a zipper foot and I'm going to stitch that onto the purse. Now, one thing, because this is the actual length of the zipper, you are going to have to move the head of that zipper when you get close to it. So when you're starting, move it to the middle. Once you get close to it, lift up your presser foot, make sure your needle's down, and then slide it back to the front so it's out of the way. Now on to making another sandwich with that. So zipper is right sides together with the main fabric. And then on the wrong side of the zipper, so the wrong side is facing up, you are going to place the right side of your lining fabric, and then you're going to stitch that in place to create your sandwich with right sides on either end. And then I've top stitched this. And now what I'm doing here is I'm actually clipping away the excess bulk because you can't even turn these corners. And I know that in the instructions, they mentioned that you can stitch it on so that it's just outside of the seam allowance. But remember that tip I told you? Just wait until we get closer to the end and I will talk about this tip that will really help you out, and you won't have to do this, and it will fit perfectly within the seam allowances that you've actually stitched. And now we're going to top stitch along here. Now this is where you can get skip stitches if you do it this method, even with a walking foot and a heavy duty needle. It was painful. I had to go very, very slow, and I tend to be a fast, pedal to the metal sewer. So this one was very painful for me to stitch so slowly with my walking foot, but I did it and it looks good. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to create that exact same zipper sandwich on the other side of the zipper. So right side of the zipper to the right side of our purse. And that is what that looks like. And then we are going to attach the lining with the right side of the lining to the wrong side of that zipper tape. Pin that in place or use clips, which I find to work quite well. Stitch that with your zipper foot, taking it over to the sewing machine, following the exact same line that you had sewn on the other one. And now we have this zipper sandwich pocket. And once it's top stitched, this is what it's going to look like. And you've got your zipper stopping at either end. And now we need to do the side seams and actually form the bag. So we're going to place right sides together on both the lining and the main purse, and then we're going to stitch the side seams. It's as easy as that. And we're also going to stitch the bottom seams. And so you see those little rectangle cutouts on the end? That's how we're going to form our boxed corners. So do not stitch those. So just get out your clips and start clipping along both bottoms and along the entire sides, making sure you're matching up the side seams where they come together along the zipper very, very precisely, because you will see that on the right side. So just stitch all the way down on the sides, the bottom, the other side, and then the bottom of the main purse, leaving out those little notches. So this is what it looks like. Next, we are going to box the corners by matching up the side seam and the bottom seam together and stitching right across. Super easy. And then we're going to birth our purse. As it comes out, it's a bit fiddly, but you can get it. And then once you have the lining out, then you can start to put it right sides together. And now you have your purse. And on the inside here, you are just going to stitch that in place to close it up. Okay guys, I want to stop you right here, because I followed the directions on making this bag to a T, and they're great directions. That being said, I did notice some areas in which the stitching was kind of pulling apart because I have such thick seams. When I had put my fusible fleece as well as the foam on top, and then I'm stitching them, you can get skip stitches even if you're using a walking foot to go along there. And I've got a pretty heavy duty baby lock sewing machine, so it can go through pretty much anything, but over time I've noticed that stitches tend to pull away. So here's some things that I would do differently. Number one, I would continue doing all of the steps that I've just mentioned up until the point in which we're going to turn the bag right side out. At that point, I would use contact cement, and it's the same stuff that you would use with leather work or making shoes. And you place a contact cement on the one side of the fabric and one side of the foam, or just use a spray adhesive to adhere it in place. That's when I would put them together, and I would use the fusible fleece just because it gives a nice little loftiness to it before you put the rigidity of that foam or bag stiffener on there, and then you're not going to see the stuff through. And with the fusible fleece, you can fuse it on there and you're not going to see any glue marks if you're using a thinner fabric such as a quilting cotton. And then what I would do is, once that is all dry and attached, that's when I would birth our bag and flip it right side out. So let's get back to that tutorial. Now onto the straps of the purse. So I just fused some interfacing onto my straps, and I got my faux leather from Minerva.com. If you're wondering, I'll leave a link in the description down below. I'm just pressing this so I can get the center, and then I'm drawing the center on this because I can't press it. If you're using a quilting cotton, press away. And then I'm bringing them both to the center, and then I'm folding them over, and then I am joining that with a clip. But if you have fabric that will press, this will make this go by like a dream. But if you don't, here's a quick hack on how to get it nice and even and staying there. And then continue to do that for the rest of the strap, and then stitch that on either end. So once that's done, we are going to put our strap on, and this is what makes it adjustable. So you're just going to thread that through, and I'm just going to go in and place a rivet on here so that it holds it in place. You could stitch it if you wanted to, but I prefer the look of the golden rivets to match my gold zippers. And so I'm just placing that through, using my tool and hammering that down so it's nice and tight. And now we are going to thread that through the D-ring that we had placed on here before. I'm just going to get that over here. And then you're going to thread that through the ladder lock. Again, going up and through there so that you can have it nice and adjustable. And one thing to note, I missed putting it through the other side of the ladder lock, so it doesn't actually lock on my purse. So don't forget to do that. This purse had 2 big flub ups on that, but it still works perfectly fine and I love it. But the next time I make it, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to make sure that I actually take the time to remember to put things through the ladder lock so that they hold in place. And then we're just going to use another rivet on either side to hold this in place. And this is some of my leatherwork tools that I have, the punch as well as the rivet setter and my mallet. My rubber mallet is absolutely amazing. I got that from Tandy's Leather and it is awesome. I absolutely love it. And now your purse is done. And there you have it, your very own crossbody purse with a nice adjustable strap. I really enjoyed how this pattern came together. It was a snap to put together and it was really, really quick. I also enjoyed a different look at how to put together a bag, as I do a lot of leather work as well and a lot of hand stitching that goes into it and a bit more traditional methods going into purse making. If you'd like to see a video on that, just let me know in the comments down below. But this one came together very, very quickly and it almost reminded me of a pattern that a quilter may have put together, just the way in which it's being put together and pieced. Really enjoyed that, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this pattern as well. And there's a lot of ways that you can really customize it, especially with going with different patterns on the side panels or the middle panel on the front there. And I would love to see what your designs are. So if you do decide to make this up, don't forget to tag me at Stitchery and hashtag Sew-Spiration. Until next time, makers, let's get our Sew-Spiration on.